Recording in progress. That must mean that we are live. So hi everyone, I can see you already dropping in nice and early. I like to see that. As you're coming in, feel free to say hi in the chat if you want to. We are calling from the UK and it's finally sunny here, isn't it, Colin? Finally.
It's
The
blistering.
sunshine has finally decided to come along. So for anyone who doesn't know me already, I'm Laura. I'm head of customer success here at CoverageBook. And if you've come to my webinars before, you'll know that I normally have a David with me, and this is not David. I've got a Colin with me today. So this is Colin from Bottle PR, and he's going to be talking today about why your board is bored with your numbers, and he's got a great tool about how you can fix that. So I'll be passing over to Colin in a minute, who will be doing the bulk of the talking today. And then at the end, I'm going to do a bit of a wrap up and how you can use everything that he's spoken about in your CoverageBook account to make your reports that little bit better and to make people more engaged with your reports. Just a tiny bit of housekeeping before I hand over as everyone's coming in. Feel free to ask questions as you go along. I will do my best to answer any or interrupt Colin as we go along. And also, I will be sending a recording of this afterwards, so feel free to just pay attention. You don't need to write loads of notes. And I think that's it. So I will hand the baton over to you, Colin.
Thanks, Laura.
No problem.
And I'll just share my screen. Hi everyone, I'm Colin from Bottle PR, and this is an introduction to a tool that we've made, and it's called How Many People? It's a tool that we made in the agency as a way to convert big numbers, particularly the kind of big numbers we find ourselves sometimes talking about in hopefully from our successful campaigns when we reach lots and lots of people. And it's to try and hopefully contribute to solving a problem that we've identified. So we'll say a wee bit more about that in a second. I'm just going to give you a very theatrical introduction, a very operatic introduction, hopefully, to the tool itself. So, oh, one, so go with. So that's an example of the tool itself, dramatized slightly by some additional music created by our head of creative. So it's called How Many People? And as a bit of background to why we made it, why we made that tool, we're a digital PR agency, and we work hard on behalf of our clients to deliver impact throughout the funnel. It's a funnel that we kind of label in those three levels that we've got there: fame, findability, and fulfilled. And we have tactics across the peso channels, probably as you would expect. And we spend a lot of time reporting and trying to convey, especially with help from CoverageBook, on the metrics that that measure the impact that we're having throughout the funnel, short-term and long-term metrics. And you know, we and together with clients want to see the impact that we're having and be able to adjust our strategies in order to maximize the impact over time. What we found was that in the conversations that we have with clients, we're getting that kind of anecdotal feedback that when it comes to them resharing results within their businesses, a number of them find that they're not necessarily grabbing and holding attention in the way that they would like to, and having the impact of their communications internally. So it made us think about what's behind that, what kinds of things are the problems that they're encountering in sharing results, maybe problems that you yourselves have got when you're reporting on results as well. So we did we did a bit of a research ourselves into that to try and see if it was something we could help with. And when it came to the research we did, so we did a mixture of desk research and we did our own primary research with a survey of senior marketers and CMOs. So this ended up sort of, we categorized the findings or the problems that we thought people were having in communicating that impact into the three problems we got there. One was called the boardroom problem. It's kind of the senior problem. It's the one that overarches the others. And I'll say a bit more about that in a second. The other, the so many KPIs problem. And the third one, the big numbers problem. So first of all, the boardroom problem. We find through research that other people have done, but also then the research that we were asking as well, some, I think, surprising kinds of results. I guess I had my birth in marketing in Unilever. Unilever is a brand-led business, a marketing-led business, where, in my experience, the CMO, the marketing director, and in fact, the CEO had come up through marketing themselves. And so marketing and brand always tended to have the strongest voice in the organization, maybe not surprisingly. But it's not true, according to this research, that's not true everywhere. So, and probably in many of our clients, maybe your own experience as well, it was found that over a quarter of CMOs are only invited to board meetings regularly. So it's quite a small proportion of, so I find that quite surprising, that quite a small proportion of CMOs are getting that kind of access to the board meetings. And that CFOs, only 50% of those have found that marketing in those conversations is delivering against what they would consider to be growth impact. And only 3%, again, real contrast with my Unilever experience, only 3% of boards, the other disciplines, have had any kind of marketing experience themselves. And 10% of senior marketers, CMOs, and other senior marketing leads have said that whenever they're presenting to the boardroom, they've actually experienced that kind of people yawning, people not actually paying attention, looking away, distracted during their presentations of impact and results. So that's part of the boardroom problem. And I suppose it was a lesson for me, or a learning for me, that not all CMOs are the same. This is research that McKinsey did, where they found that there is certainly a group of about a quarter of CMOs who would describe their relationship within the organization as being one where they've got a very strong partnership with the key players, and they're there present consistently in the C-suite and driving for growth and recognized as such. A bigger proportion have got a more partial relationship internally and stuff as well. So maybe one or two of the C-suite they consider to be their strongest relationships, and a more limited sort of visibility and responsibility for growth and customer experience. And then I guess worryingly, there's a sort of quarter of those in the research by McKinsey who they've labeled them as loners, people who've got a much more limited relationship with the C-suite and are much more transactional when they are discussing and reporting and the scope that they are reporting on. So that's good for us, I guess, as an agency, and supporting people in the senior marketing roles to be much more aware of, because I think sometimes we can think that we are omnipresent and very much at the heart of the conversation. It's not so true for everybody. And the second problem is kind of related to that as well. That again, perhaps one that some recognise. We know that clients will quite often come back to us and ask for our results numbers to be recut sometimes into different formats, to add in increasingly sort of KPIs, I think, and sometimes in order to try and chase different people within the organization, within the board, in order to try and grab hold of that attention. But I think what it results in quite often is this, as the cartoon there has got, is this sort of expansion of the reporting dashboard to the point where people are bombarded with pie charts, scatter diagrams, all of the different formats probably we're trying to visualize it in, but it's overwhelming. And that piece of research also showed that with 200 senior marketers who were asked, what is the most important KPI? 50 different answers came back. Now that's That's way more. That's way more KPIs than probably ought to be in any, even with sector differences as well, than ought to be on the plate of what we are reporting and sharing as impact in marketing. So it grows and it probably distracts and doesn't hold attention because it dilutes the conversation and the storytelling around impact. And then the third problem, the big numbers problem, that's one that's not it's not specific to marketers. It's a human problem. So when we were researching this, that recognition that quite often we, hopefully you said with successful campaigns, even with CoverageBook, helping people to understand that perhaps historically some of those reach numbers that were incredible, even, estimated coverage views for the work that we're doing can still generate big numbers. And humans, over our evolution, haven't evolved in order to be able to visualize and see those big numbers, to have a kind of grasp on what that big number means, to be able to see it in that way. So that's a human problem. It's kind of demonstrated by this example. So an experiment was carried out with a large number of different people to see how they could contextualize a number. So the experiment was done with a simple number line. So a number line like this was drawn. On one end of it was 1,000, and on the other end of it was 1 billion. And the audience, the participants in the experiment, were asked where would they place the number 1 million on that number line between 1,000 and 1 billion. And they, sort of roved around with where they would place it, but where it typically was placed was in the middle of that number line. It's sort of, I know it's not that end, I know it's not that end, I'll place it somewhere in the middle. That's probably where it goes. But of course, that's just people thinking about this idea of categories rather than actual number values. That's a kind of going, well, I've got big number, a bigger number, and the biggest number, and just sort of arranging them in those categories. When in fact, as I'm sure you've worked out, the number 1 million actually goes right over there. On that number line, 1 million is very far to the left-hand side because there are 999 million to the right of it till you get to 1 billion. So that's just an example of this idea that when we're talking about big numbers, people are struggling to show the relationship, to understand them, to have context and categorize them properly. I've often thought, I grew up, I'm a lot older than most of the people in our agency. I grew up when millionaires were quite a sort of rarity. And now we've got billionaires. And it's one of those things that people really struggle to visualize, again, the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. Here in the UK, we're really familiar with the idea that we've got the difference is really down to a millionaire's shortbread has got chocolate and caramel and shortbread, whereas billionaires, it's got a little sprinkling sea salt on top. So that's the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire in the world of shortbread. But actually, to try to help visualize what we sort of get a lot of news reports about billionaires and just the current presidential race and Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the rest of them as well. They're much more in the conversation. It's very difficult for people to try to actually stack up what that relationship looks like. So this is an example of a video, if it plays properly, a video that someone is trying to use grains of rice just to try to help people to see and visualize that difference.
The scale of $1 billion is really crazy. So let's say 1 grain of rice is equivalent to 100K, and 10 grains of rice would be then 1 million. Well, how much is 1 billion? So my Saturday night consisted of counting 10,000 grains of rice one by one, just to show you guys how much $1 billion is. Of course I filmed it, and of course I time-lapsed it, and this is playing at, I don't even know, God knows how fast it's playing at, but so now I'm proud to present to you the results. That is $1 billion, where each grain of rice is worth 100K. Look how much rice this is, guys. That's crazy. I just bought you like a Lamborghini right here, and I didn't even notice it was gone. Here's the $5 million house in California. And oh, look, I still have all this money. Well, a lot of you guys asked me, well, how much? I got the rice.
So he goes on then to show us exactly how enormously wealthy Jeff Bezos is. So that's an example using grains of rice to try to get, in that case, people thinking about the financial side of things, how big a billion is versus a million versus what most of us would recognize as sums of money that we come in touch with on a day-to-day basis. So this big numbers problem really was the problem that we tried to solve. Of all the communications of impact problems, it's not that we've stopped there, but as an agency, we thought, okay, that's something maybe we can make a small contribution to with an online tool. That's what became How Many People, which is just a tool where if you enter any number and choose a different context, like a societal context, or maybe the sector that you're in, like healthcare or automotive, it'll produce comparable, contextualized ways to try and tell a story about that number, make a comparison that might make it something that's more arresting and more computable by people. So the big numbers problem, we're trying to remember ourselves to remember the 3 C's. So people don't count, they compare, so give some context. So that's the 3 C's, and hopefully, if not too many of you have left after the technical problems at the start, this webinar in our ambitions is one that's going to reach 20 million people, which how many people would tell us that so many people use TikTok every month. So that's an example of the kind of output from How Many People. Whenever you type in a number like 20 million and choose a category like pop culture, and the number of Brits that are using TikTok every month. So a really simple tool that we'd invite and encourage all of you to use. You may not use the numbers straight away. You might just give you that prompt to think, how might I contextualize the numbers that I'm sharing with my team, with the board, with other people within the organization, so that at the very least, we're trying to make some impact into the big numbers problem that they can encounter. And one of the others, back to the boardroom problem, we've got a guy called Nick Defty who works for YCN, a training organization that we use here at Bottle. And when he's trying to encourage us to think about the ways in which we can grab and hold attention when we're presenting, then he uses the acronym DRAMA. And it's one that I just thought I'd share with you as well today. So when we're presenting, try to use dialogue, try to have open questions so that our broadcast doesn't necessarily stay there, that it becomes much more of a conversation with the audience. Relatability, try to use or avoid using industry-specific jargon and acronyms that can lose the audience. Try to think about that audience and tailor the presentation to what might be their priorities and pain points. And maximizing is about trying to bring in all of ourselves to the presentation itself. So I think quite often I'm guilty of that, of relying on visual stimulus as part of a presentation, but bring in anecdotes, bring in all the things you can in order to try to avoid things like that big number glazing over problem, and focus on the agenda that you've got. So if you're part of an agenda, try to align the storytelling with the other topics that you know are coming up on there, so that you are relating and connecting with the interests and things that other people are focused on during a presentation. So that's it. That's the boardroom problem and the big numbers problem, particularly with How Many People, that we want to try and share with you today. Thanks a lot, Laura, at CoverageBook for giving us a chance to share.
That's okay. Just to confirm, where can they find the tool and can everybody use it?
Yes, anyone can use it, and it's on our website. So wearebottle.com, or one word, wearebottle.com, and on the top navigation, the tool itself, How Many People, and I'm sure we can share that as a link.
Yeah. I'll pop it in the link to the follow-ups as well. So thank you. What I'm going to do now is quickly show everyone how you can use this in the context of your reports. So I'm going to quickly share my screen as well. So here is sort of a just need to move my controls out of the way. Here is a simple sort of CoverageBook report, which I'm sure you've all seen before. And I've got some coverage in here, and the coverage is from the sample book that you might have seen before. There's 8 pieces of coverage in this book, got a total audience of 14.8 million, 118,000 estimated views, and just over 3,000 engagements. Wonder how many of you have just glazed over now that I've just given you sort of a sea of numbers. So let's have a quick look at total audience. And I know it's a figure that many people use. It's more of a context about the reach of where your coverage might go. So step back, what is total audience? Total audience is just a sum of all the places where you've got coverage, if it's an online article, or a sum of or the followers of any social post that you've put in. If you've got a piece on the Daily Mail, for instance, it doesn't mean that everybody who went to the Daily Mail website will have read that post. And if you've got a piece, an influencer post, not every follower of that influencer will even turn on their phone during the time that they might see your coverage. So it's definitely not a view of how many people have seen your coverage, it's the potential reach. We've got I don't know if anyone's seen our advert that's out at the moment, which says it's great, but I've got the potential to reach Zac Efron, but have I? No, and I've tried. And I often see this number in the billions. In this example, we're on 14.8 million. So using Bottle's tool, it shows us that that's the same amount of people that use the users of Netflix in the UK. It's how many people visit the pyramids in Egypt, and how many people saw the King's coronation. So am I thinking that 8 pieces of coverage, when you start to get context behind it, is that how many people will have seen the coverage? No. And once you start getting a bit of a grasp over how big these figures are, you might start to think about using or bringing to the forefront the smaller numbers. I know that we're big can't think of the word, aggravators of estimated views. So looking at this number, it's so much smaller. It's 120, just under 120,000. So estimated views looks at how many people we think will see that coverage in its lifetime. And it's a number, if you can get yourself and the board used to using, it's really good because you can liken it to impressions and other marketing activity. So in terms of what does that mean for, let's use this tool. It's the same number of people that go to Coachella in one day. That's actually really impressive. It's the population of Seychelles, as how many people fly out of Heathrow Airport. So actually, it's a really, once you start to get a grasp of, actually, that's a lot of people. And we can say that many people we think saw the coverage in this report. That's really impressive. And it just took a few of these stats and some slides, and I can pull it to life. But I want to take that one bit further. So let's look at engagements. So that's how many people have read your article and then done something about it. So they've seen it and they've been moved to action. And this is now only 3,000. So we've gone from that 14 million to 3,000. But let's sort of bring this number to life. The amount of athletes in the Olympics each year. It's the amount of macarons that are sold each year. All these stats are from the how many people tool, and you can just change, like Colin said, per industry. It's how many pubs there are in London. And I think once you get more familiar with using smaller numbers and bringing them to life, but also focusing on them in your report. So all of this is made in a CoverageBook report. These are just slides that I've added in, and I've added in at the beginning. As I do the follow-up, I will add in how many people, we said how many people too much. I'll add in how you create slides within your report, but this is just a quick explanation of how you can use it. And one quick hint at the end, actually, if you're looking for images, check out Unsplash, because it's a really good resource. That's what I've got these images from, to use to help bring these numbers to life. So you'll see there's lots of different layouts that you can use. I've used here. You can change the font and the colors and things like that. So that's how I've used the tool in this account. But yeah, I'd really implore you to use a tool, like Colin said, not only to get yourself understanding the numbers better, but also then getting the board used to the smaller numbers and bringing them to life a bit more. can see there's been something in the chat. Oh, Hillary would like some more US orientated stats to be added. Is that something that's planned, Colin?
It's a good point. We deliberately did have a bit of a UK focus, not realizing we're going to have a transatlantic audience today in our first outing. But it's a really good point, Hillary. I think we could quite easily add that in to give, because you're right. You want context that for that relatability, and sometimes that is national context and stuff as well in that comparison. So it's a good point.
He says, super thanks. And does anybody else have any more questions as you come through? Feel free to type them up. And I know what it's like after you leave a webinar, then you're like, oh gosh, wish I'd asked that. If they want to ask anything about the tool, Colin, what's the best email to get you at?
Certainly email me at colin.cather@wearebottle.com.
I'm just popping it in the, oh, I've done it in capitals. I'll pop it in the chat, and I'll pop it in the follow-up as well. Colin.Cather at wearebottle.com. There you go. And it's the wearebottle.com is where you'll also see the tool. It's just on your homepage and anyone can use it. Oh, we've got one more question coming through on the QA. How do we access this tool? I'll type in the thing. There we go. Wearebottle.
Yeah, if you go to wearebottle.com, you'll find it on our Swan
Checking
navigation.
I typed it right, so you should be able to see that. Go have a quick look at that. Let me know if you have any more questions. I will probably send this recording out. Hit your inboxes tomorrow, I think. And yeah, if you have any more questions, you can always contact me or Colin. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Colin, for joining me today. I found that really interesting. I'll also send the link to the YouTube video that you shared, because I got engrossed in that the other day, and I watched all the way to the end of how much money does Jeff Bezos have. It's insane.
It is insane.
Pardon?
In grains of rice, it is insane. Yes.
It is insane, yeah. And I think I've shown it to everyone I know, so I'll pop a link to that video as well. All right. Well, thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day, everybody. And hopefully see you in the next one. See you later.
Bye-bye.